Holy Gospel according to St. Luke. Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. So this whole thing is about praying and not losing heart. The rest of the story, just remember, this is about praying. Don't lose heart. He said, in a certain city, there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city, there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, "Grant me justice against my opponent." For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, "Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice so that she may not wear me out by continually coming." The Lord said, "Listen to what that unjust says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice for them. And yet when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. So first, let me tell you, every time I read this passage, and for the past over 20 years now, when I think of anything or anyone concerning a judge, I can tell you that my personal experience with one of my favorite judges is that I know that the favorite judge that I know constantly got criticized because he tended to be lenient. He tended to be a compassionate heart, an empathetic heart. He would sometimes get criticized because police department and the DA's office would do such a great job at sentencing, at catching them. And then they get to court and the judge would say, "We're going to give you an opportunity. You got a do-over. You have a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, a fifth chance." So much so that this judge actually wrote a book. Is it justice or is it just this? Is it justice where a judge, when I think of a judge, how many of you think that the judge makes the decision? I always thought the judge made the decision. Not so much. Because what do district attorneys have? They go by something called mandatory minimums, right? So over 90% of the time, according to the statistics in the book, I checked it last night just to make sure I said the right thing, and I don't want Judge Jeffrey Sprecher from Berks County, born and grew up in Fleetwood, Pennsylvania, who wrote the book. I don't want Jeff to be upset with me. I want Jeff to know that I'm with Jeff. I'm with Jeff. Because I'd like for the judge to have the final decision and not every case come and, well, I have to sentence this. I have to sentence this. Where's the heart of the judge? Don't we elect judges to make decisions? You didn't. You elected a DA to create mandatory minimums. And right before you're going to have an election, how wimpy is a DA ever going to be? Aren't they going to be the toughest on crime? We're going to break out the barrels because we're going to be the toughest on crime. Have any of you ever had a close relationship with someone that was about to be sentenced? And you're praying and you're praying and you're praying for justice and mercy. Well, this text today gives us all kinds of options because it's always about every preacher today has to decide what's the context of their audience. What if my congregation before me in this room and online, what if all of you are struggling with prayer? What if you're just struggling with prayer? And it's hard for you to pray. And through these past few years, it's been even harder to pray. What if prayer is your challenge? What if you don't even believe in prayer anymore because you don't seem to ever get an answer that's at least the one that you want? So it makes sense if it's about that, if that's where we are as a body right now, then I ought to be preaching about prayer and inviting you. Just inviting and inviting and inviting and inviting. And I have felt in my time with you in these 7+ years that the prayer ministries of this congregation have risen not only in awareness, but the depth of the prayers. Not fancy, not beautiful. I'm always suspicious of those people who can pray these eloquent prayers. They freak me out, quite honestly. I like the ones that say, Lord, help me. I like the people who pray and say, I have no idea what to say. Those are the prayers of the heart, aching groanings of the heart that I can actually respect. And I've seen growth in prayer because we've increased awareness. We've heightened its frequency. And how many times do you want to be the person that's standing over that I say, hey, skip the printed prayers, just pray from your heart? How many of you would say, I'm in, I'll do that? And how many of you are going to say, uh-oh, that's why I don't want to do it, because he might call on me? Seriously? Get over it. So there's another part, there's a possibility in here. What about if some of you in this room are discouraged by all of the injustice in the world today? What if you're so discouraged that you wonder if God truly is moved by our prayers? So at that end, maybe instead of inviting you to do something, I want to encourage you to not lose heart. I just want to encourage you, as the passage says, don't lose heart. To be persistent, to not give in, to not give up. And then I wonder how many of you have ever experienced, and I know we're Lutherans, so this is sometimes a foreign topic. A lot of Lutheran pastors avoid what the Bible actually has to say. Let me show you how this works before I get to my main point. Did you hear the first lesson today? And it was Jacob, right? Jacob, and he took with him his 2 wives, his 2 maids, and his 11 children. And as we read the passage, God blesses this man with 2 wives and 2 maids and 11 children. And I'm thinking, God better bless him, because can you imagine any of you having 2 of anything? Okay, holy crow. But what is it about that whole Old Testament? How does one explain to people today in the 21st century? Well, what if some of you have your second wife? What if some of you went through separation, divorce, and you have your second wife? What if you lost your spouse to death and you have your second wife? And how many times, if you were interviewed, certainly not here, but if you were interviewed, would you say to your second wife, well, you're almost as good as Betsy. You know, you cook the mashed potatoes almost as good as Susie Lou. And how many of you would bite your tongue and say, nothing? What if the Bible that you think you've been reading and understanding properly all these years, what if you just had a really poor interpretation? What if you're so afraid to read what the words have to say and what's right in front of you, and you're so afraid to hear it that you'll just take the party line, hook, line, sinker, and you'll drown with all the others? What if? What if? So this is the last thing that this text could give opportunity to preach. And can you tell already? I'm not even at the sermon yet. I'm just getting ready to warm up to it. But what if it's about wrangling, wrestling with powers and principalities? Do you know what that means? What if you are in the midst of spiritual warfare? What if you are in the midst of, I don't know what to do? I hear this voice and I can't tell, is it the angel on my shoulder or the devil on my other? Which one am I supposed to follow? Which one? Do I listen to what I hear on the news? Do I listen to what I read in the paper, what I read in a book? Do I listen to the guy that preaches to me on a Sunday morning at St. John's? Do I listen to what people say about the guy that preaches on a Sunday morning at St. John's? It's always, always, always all 3 of those options. always, you have to start with and stay with prayer. Pray without ceasing. I'm not just talking about your appointed time where you might bow your head or you might sit with your eyes closed and you might consciously have a conversation. But my personal belief of prayer is that every moment that I am breathing, I am praying. Am I aware of my prayers? Am I intentionally saying, I pray for Charles. You know, I pray that he lives another 25 years. I pray for Phil. I thank God for, David. Just because I'm not saying those words doesn't mean I'm not in a relationship of communication with my Creator. You might think it's silly. I went looking for ducks. I love ducks. I love birds. Pheasants are my favorite, but who's seen a pheasant lately? But I like ducks because when I'm with them, I'm not hearing God speak through the ducks. It's just that the ducks calm me down. If I listen to the Messiah, Handel's Messiah, it calms me down in places and revs me up at others. If I listen to Amy Grant, it calms me down in places. If I listen to, God forbid, last night, I listened to Garth Brooks. He's got a song, Unanswered Prayer. No, seriously, I looked up. I was afraid of playing Garth Brooks in my house that the ceiling could have crashed in. Country in my home. All of this, critical to praying without ceasing. Isn't it all prayer? It is if I say so. It is if I choose it to be so. If I don't choose it to be so, does that mean it's not? Do not lose heart. Have any of you ever experienced me that you've wondered, is Pastor Bob tired? Have any of you ever wondered that? Have you ever wondered, does he have that illness that CDC, the Center for Disease Control, in recent years finally gave a name to? It's called Butt-Be Dragon. Does he have it? Have you ever wondered? Have you ever wondered where it comes from? Do not lose heart. Jesus encourages us to pray without ceasing, don't lose heart, to wrestle with the Word of God. Not just read it, but think about it. Now, I don't know about you, but reading the passage, he had 2 wives. So that apparently was okay. Am I right? That's polygamy. Right? Polygyny. Okay. Because polygamy is multiple women. Polyandry is multiple men. Yeah, I don't know enough. That was cultural anthropology in 1981 for me. So what does that mean? It doesn't have any relevance today. Blow it off. Well, then why'd they stick it in here and why are we reading it today? Well, because that's what we always do in church. Well, why put stuff in the book to do just because we always did it? Doesn't make sense, does it? Doesn't make sense. Had rice pudding given to me on Friday night. Now, who could eat rice pudding without cinnamon on top? Where's the cinnamon? We all have our predetermined habits, including how we worship. Remember your baptism again and again. Just look at the beginning of your bulletin, Shannon, has it right in there someplace. Yeah, there it is. Baptismal promises. We're trying to drive this home that every single person in this church will eventually have this memorized. If you can memorize a Garth Brooks song, you can memorize this. Live among God's faithful people, hear the word of God, share the Lord's Supper, proclaim the good news of God in Christ through word and deed, serve all people, following the example of Jesus, and strive for justice and peace in all the earth. Makes sense to me. It really does. To come regularly to the table, receive the sacrament, be the body, be the blood, be that for others, broken and shed. There's the key. Receiving the body, receiving the blood. This is not your special snack pack on a Sunday morning. This is an invitation for you to participate, to be for others broken, to be for others poured out. If you want to participate in communion, then be prepared to not just receive. It's not some sacred gift that makes you clean. It's not wash and scrub. It's about participating fully. So when you drink from the cup, you can take the little snack back, or you can take the chalice and drink it all in. Because if you're going to do it, do you want to dangle your toes in the water, or do you want to get out into the depths? Don't know. But as a congregation, you decide. You know where I'm going. You probably won't find me in the shallow end. I'd rather be out in the deep, almost drowning, if not already drowning. I'd rather be out there because I want to be fully immersed. I want to be fully. You want fully? Go to Becky and Scott Shire's class today. Go to the class Love Wins. I'm not going to tell you the book is the favorite book you'll ever read, but it will certainly stir your thinking. It'll challenge some of your preconceptions. You'll have an opportunity to understand at least what Rob Bell, and remember, you guys taught this over 10 years ago in this church. We're just bringing it back because my suspicion is you're going to have a different interpretation now than you did a decade ago. In fact, I bet that you will have a different interpretation now than you had 10 years ago. I love that. Truly love that. Persistence in every encounter with the divine. If you stick with your relationship with God, you will be blessed. I didn't say you'll be wealthy. I didn't say you'll drive a Maserati. I didn't say you'll live in the most beautiful home. You might be blessed in ways that are extremely painful. Don't forget that. I mean, holy crow, how many of you are Phillies fans? What did it take to shift from the loss category to the win category? They got rid of the manager, and they asked another one to participate. Did it mean the last manager was bad? Do you think anybody that coaches or manages in the major league is bad? Do you think there's any ball player that makes it to that level, no matter what team they're on, whether they're the first place or the last place? Do you think there's anyone bad? Do you really think just because the person at the Olympics gets the gold medal and somebody else doesn't get a medal, that they're not equally capable and competent in their sport? It's on any given day, anybody can win or lose. How many times have we seen the person predicted to get the gold and they didn't even do it? My senior year in high school, take you back to a really fun story, they thought I was going to win the state 2-mile. I came in 19th or 22nd or something. I just remember 100 feet away from the start line. Why won't my legs go? I can still think it. And that was 50 years ago. Yeah, 50 years ago. And I can still feel, why won't my legs go? On any given day, anything can happen. What I'm trying to say to you is it's not all roses. Wouldn't you rather have Allie with you today, sitting beside you, than saying in print, our angel Allie? I don't know Allie except for video clips on a screen and the stories I've heard from your family. And I feel like I know that little girl like anybody that would have met her. Maybe it's because I'm so persistent in my love for the two of you as grandparents and love for Allie's mother and care for wanting to crawl into your skin to try and support in a way, the only way that I can. And that is to remember. That's as good as I can do. We aren't promised that everything will work out. So please don't say to somebody, it'll all work out. Remind them that you'll do something better. You'll pray, and you won't lose heart because you won't leave them. But you know and I know that somebody that asks for help generally isn't really looking for help until they ask a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth time. And then, be there. When they're really ready to hunker down, when they're really ready to get at it, then you do it. Too many organizations and too many people think they're heading in the right direction, and they really do. And they think their behavior is the right behavior because it's what everybody's doing. And it's just not. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Always. When abundance showed up, when everybody's house had a phone, everybody's refrigerator had a chicken in it, everybody's freezer had 16 different flavors of ice cream, everybody had not one TV, 2 TVs, 10 TVs, 19 TVs, watching one football game in here and another football game over there, screaming in between. First in the manufactured, then eventually in information. And I can go through how many news channels in about 10 minutes and get how many different perspectives. It all seemed win-win. Have we learned yet more of what we want? Thanks? Or is it this? More of too many things is too much. So if I could tell you over and over and over again, as one among you and your pastor, do a few things. Just a few. Get rid of everything else. Do them really, really well. But mostly, do them willingly. Do a few things, do them well, and do them willingly. We have left the age of information, whether you know it or not. We are in the age of choosing. And the choices today are harder than ever because there's so much to choose from. When we built our home, I remember looking at the palette, the paint chip stuff, and all I could think of was what it was going to be like to be at the store in Emmaus with Jean looking at 100 different flavors of white. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we'll be moving into the next house before we pick the color of white. So the contractor said, give her 2 choices. How stupid is that? Do whatever you want to do. Guess how many white walls we have in our house? 0. We're leaving the age of information. We've entered the age of choice. Not just choosing what we will consume, but who each of us will become. With whom will we connect? Who are we going to lead? Have you seen my desire from day one? We lost close to 12 members my first year when I arrived here because I started focusing on children leading up front. I got letters written to me saying, why are you doing that? We have all these paid people. Why are you bringing up kids from the sanctuary? Have we learned now that's what you do? Don't pay people. Don't pay me if you don't want to. Just listen. Who are you going to trust? Who will you honor? Who will be dignified? Who are you going to isolate? Who are you going to believe? How will we choose to walk through the world? And what will we leave behind? So what did Dorothy Gruber leave behind? You don't know. You know why? You don't know her. What will you leave behind? And who will know that you've left it? What will your legacy be? How will you create it? What will people really say? What will they say? Do not believe in the faulty thinking that God is ever the unjust judge. Do believe that God's justice is always focused on those who are vulnerable. Do believe that. And do believe that even this judge in this particular text, who willingly says, I don't fear God and I don't respect people, understand that that self-indictment, still that knucklehead judge bent to do the will of the widow for these two reasons. It says it because he was getting a black eye. Physically, it was hurting him. She was waking him up at all hours of the day and night. And socially, people were starting to focus on this guy and saw that he was just a total fool. So what'd you get out of today? Pray without ceasing. Don't lose heart. Choose wisely who you will listen to. And don't think for a second that choice will be easy. And don't think for a second that it won't come without your own wrestling with God.